Hello everybody and welcome to the Celtic Unrestricted View podcast. My name is Ryan Clifford. Well, it's a massive guest this week. Joining me on this guest podcast is JP. JP, I don't really need to say too much about this man. An absolute hero to most Celtic fans and myself. I'm really glad he can actually come on and speak to us today, mate.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And I'm totally privileged to be sitting here with you just now. As you said, the man needs no introduction. Certainly for myself, watching as a Celtic fan, going when I was a younger boy, and Alan was playing with Celtic, that is the best left-footed player I've seen in a Hoops jersey, by far. There's nothing comes close. Probably even in Scottish football, to be honest with you. The power, the accuracy, some of the goals that they scored, I mean, absolutely phenomenal. And it's great to be sitting here with him just now.
As I say, Alan, it's amazing how you're on, mate. Thanks for coming on.
Aye, thanks for inviting us on, lads. Appreciate it. Much appreciated.
As I say,
I'm not sure about the best. I'm not sure about the best left foot though. You got Nakamura to think about,
Yeah, but he was kind of just after you, Tom, but just totally. That's, as I say, that's just my opinion, man. I thought the best, especially left-footed wise, best left-footer I've seen.
No,
I scored a few tap-ins with the right foot as well,
Yeah, the one at Ibrox sticks out to me. The one you cut inside and just rolled right past Boss. That was a great goal.
Right, obviously, as you say, Alan, the book's just out as well. How's the reaction been with the book? And I'm guessing your phone's been non-stop, trying to get events and trying to get book signings and stuff.
Aye, it's been great. I've been really positive feedback from it. So it's only been out, a little over a month now, but I've had some positive stuff about it. So hopefully we can keep pushing it and keep getting people to read it and just see my side of the story,
I think as well, JP, I think you'll agree, there's millions and millions of Celtic fans and they all want to know Alan's story because at the end of the day, we have paid to see him play football and he's one of our heroes, and the book's obviously going to tell you more about his life, and I think a lot of people will be interested in that because, let's be fair, he's got an interesting story to tell, not just about the outside of his life, but the football career.
Yeah, definitely. An intriguing story for any young Celtic fan, even growing up just now, I think. Alan was an inspiration to a lot of people when he played for Celtic. So, like say, my dad, even knowing I'm coming on here today, he's buzzing for me, not just me buzzing myself. So, because obviously he remembers Alan really well, and as I say, I've told other family members and stuff I was doing this today, and I'm sitting here having to sort of punch myself, to be honest. I'm actually sitting here doing this to make sure it is actually me that's doing this. But no, it's been fantastic, and to have a book out, I'm assuming it's been flying off the shelves, so much so that I haven't had to get a copy from a member of the family, and I couldn't get a copy anywhere. So I know for a fact it's doing really well.
And also, the author is Jamie Boyle, who's obviously come on the podcast before, Alan. How is it being with Jamie? I know he can be a bit talkative, so how is he living with him as well?
Yeah, his missus needs a Blue Peter badge. Listen, I think if you live with anyone for a week, whether it's family members or something like that, it's hard work, So, but living with someone's family for a week and talking about everything we spoke about was intense. It was a very, very tough week. I felt great when I'd finished it. When I was done, so it was intense, but it was one of those things that needed to be done. We just wanted to get it done and out of the way. So it was 7 days. I moved into his house with him and his wife Shirley, and as I say, I couldn't move into my mum and dad's house for a week. Never mind, mates. So, but we had to do it, and I'm pleased we got it done.
See, obviously on the book as well, like you says, it was kind of intense, and obviously after it was a bit of relief in a way. Do you think that was because you had all that built up, and it was good to get it out, kind of out in the open, in a sense?
Aye, there was loads of stuff, from being a kid to the present day. That was, it just festers away, and I just thought, it'd be nice to get it out there and what have you. So I got my side of the story out and got a lot off my chest, and you feel better for it when you talk about things,
I think that's in general. I think the more you talk, the more you can understand things, and the more you actually can get that out there. And obviously, Alan, you've had a fantastic career. Starting at Newcastle, how was it growing up in Newcastle? Were you actually always want to be a footballer, or was it something that kind of, as you got later on in years, that kind of that's what you started thinking about doing?
Nah, it was from a very early age. I think from even when I was toddling, you know. So, but I'm just like most people who'll be listening to this podcast. You know, I'm brought up on a council estate, or as you say in Glasgow, on a scheme. No, that's all we used to do. We just used to play football as kids in the playground, after school, during school, any spare time. So it was just a council estate where football was a release, and I just so happened to love it and be quite good at it. So that's all I wanted to do.
And how was that? I know by watching other podcast stuff that you grew up in kind of youth teams and stuff, kind of boys club. How did you actually get to Newcastle? How did that surrounding actually happen? That actual transfer to Newcastle?
Well, I just think they have scouts out and about watching kids football, whether it's boys club level, Wallsend Boys Club, or whether it was the schools that I played for, the district or the county. They're always out and about, the scouts from not just Newcastle, other clubs as well. So you get noticed from a young age. I think I was about 8 or 9 or 10 when I got noticed. So they take note and then they follow you, progress, you know, and they see how you do, and then eventually you get invited in and they see how good you are. So you've just got to prove yourself.
It's obviously Newcastle, that's where you're from. It must have been quite a big thing for you as well, signing for your boyhood club.
Oh, as any kid, whatever club you support as a kid, your dream is to play for them. And for me to pull on the black and white stripes was an absolute, dream come true. I only played 20 games for them before I moved on to Bolton, but just to pull the black and white stripes on for me was probably like any young kid who's a Celtic fan pulling the hoops on. It was a dream come true, and I had to pinch myself, especially for me because I had such a tough time when I was 16. I had a bad car accident, which is I talk about in the book. So it was touch and go whether I'd walk again, never mind go on to play football again. So to get the opportunity to play for great clubs like Newcastle, Bolton, Aston Villa, Celtic, represent my country, it was an absolute. I was a lucky boy.
As JP, as Alan says there, it's about the same as us. If we signed for Celtic, that was your dream. So the fact that he went and done that for his boyhood heroes, that must have been exceptional. Because if that was me or you, it'd have been a dream come true.
Yeah, definitely. As a kid, as Alan says, you dream about playing for Celtic. You're out playing football in the street with your mates, and you'd be starting off with an iron brew can, you wouldn't even have a ball, and you'd so and so your heroes. Growing up for me, Alan will probably remember these guys as well. One of my big heroes at the time as well was Paul McStay. So I just wanted to be him. Everything I did when I played football, I just wanted to be Paul. Used to kid on that was Paul that scored the goal, not me. And, as I say, but that's what you do, and no doubt Alan did the same when he was younger.
You obviously mentioned the crash.
Yeah.
Obviously mentioned the crash. I know it's in the book, so I'll leave the people to read that in the book because I know it is quite a big thing for you when we're younger. But obviously your debut for Newcastle, how did you feel when you obviously came through that situation that happened to you, and then you got your debut? Was that a kind of thing that as well, you pinched yourself, you've actually got to your debut considering that you might have not thought you might kind of actually play football?
Aye, well, it took a long time for us to get to that position. I had to watch my mates, Lee Clark, Steve Watson, Robbie Elliott, all break into the team while I was out with a broken neck. So it was a tough time for me. So when I eventually did get there, my debut was funny actually because I was only sub. And 5 minutes before kickoff, one of the lads got injured coming off the pitch, coming up it's St James's Park, the steps up to the dressing rooms, and he ran up the steps and he fractured something in his foot. He fractured one of his metatarsals, so they looked at him and he wasn't fit to play. So they come in, the manager come in at the time, Ozzy Ordealers, and said, "Tomo, you're playing, get ready." So I wasn't on the bench, I was starting, but I didn't have any time to think about it. I was only 5 minutes and it was 3 o'clock kickoff, so I was there was shin pads on and get on the pitch. So I didn't have any time to worry about it. It was, if I'd have known the day before that I was playing, I'd probably had a sleepless night and tossed and turned. But the fact that I wasn't playing, someone gets injured in the warm-up and you haven't got any time to think about it. So I was just thrust into it. So it worked out well for me.
And how was obviously growing up in and around that kind of Newcastle first team? Was there any guys who were good with you or guys that gave you a bit of advice?
Oh, there's some great senior pros at Newcastle when I was a kid. Roy Aitken, who you'll know, Mark McGee, who you'll know, Kevin Sheedy, played for the Republic of Ireland and Everton. There was some great senior players for us to learn off, you know, and I think that rolled on to when I was a senior player. You know, it's good to give young lads attention and give them a bit of advice and help them through, you know. And I think that gave us a great grounding in the game, the senior pros that were above us, you know, as well as good managers.
I think JP, Alan says here that I think these days, obviously we don't know what happens these days with senior pros, but I think it's always good for the senior pros to give the kind of youths a bit of advice, because some youths can go the other way and not actually do well in football. So it's actually really good that guys gave Alan a bit of advice and kind of helped him on the road to be a successful footballer as he was.
Yeah, definitely, because don't forget, like, as a young boy, you'd probably be going in, just say Alan was training with the reserves or whatever it was called back then, the youth level, and to go in for that, to getting 5 minutes notice to play with the first team, that must have been like a daunting task ahead. Like, I'd have been like a rabbit in the headlights. I don't know about Alan, but had it have been me. So, because you get into these guys are your heroes. These are the guys you're trying to aspire to be. So you're getting to you're trying harder because you want to prove yourself. You want to show that, you know, I'm worthy of being here. And well, no, that from my perspective, that's what it would be like for me. But yeah, definitely. To get any advice, you know, how to handle situations, maybe media training, how to talk to people, how to do this, how to do that, what questions to try and avoid, looking out for you. Yeah, that would be absolutely awesome for any young kid.
Is that something you got, Alan, when you're younger, to talk to the media and the radio? Was that something you got trained up on?
No, I don't think you did actually. I know they do now. The young lads, the kids, they go through courses now to help them with the media and that. And I think that's rightly so, because I think if you go back 25, 30 years to when I was a young lad, it wasn't as intense as it is now. You know, the media coverage and the social media stuff now that they do all the training. So, you know, we didn't do an awful lot of media work, if I'm honest, but it was good for me when I was a kid at Newcastle, because I was in and out the team quite a lot. And if you were out the team, you had to go and do the local radio. So you'd co-commentate on the local radio. So that was a great little grounding, you know. Obviously, you weren't in front of a camera, but you were talking in front of thousands of Newcastle fans if you weren't in the team and stuff. So that was a little bit of training in itself, you know, which it stands you in good stead for when you do get a little bit more media attention that the older you get, you know.
That's something I didn't know that happened, that the youths went and done the co-comment to that. I think that would actually give you a bit more best alertness to actually when you do talk to the media and in late in life. And obviously, it's an interesting point I want to make as well. See, when you were at Newcastle, obviously new sports sciences took over football, everything's all changed. Was there any kind of nutrition stuff that you taught back then with the diet sheets, or did you roughly kind of do what you want back then at that age?
No, it wasn't really do what you want. I mean, we'd stay in hotels the night before games, and we'd have, you know, the proper food, the pastas and stuff like that we needed, and the right amount of protein and stuff. So it was coming in. I mean, it's nothing like it is now in terms of recovery after matches and stuff like that. But it was definitely starting to come in when I was at Newcastle, and then obviously progressed to the clubs onwards, you know.
And obviously, after debut, I'm sure you must have had a few shandies after that, a proper night out.
I probably had a couple of nights out on the town night, but I think I was playing for the reserves on the Tuesday night as well. So not too many.
And then obviously after Newcastle with Bolton, as you says, why did you leave Bolton? Was it just to get game time and get more experience?
What, to leave Newcastle to go to Bolton?
Yeah.
It was Newcastle. We had a couple of senior lads ahead of us. One who I've mentioned, Kevin Sheedy, another lad called Scott Sellers. And I'd missed 18 months, 20 months out with my neck injury. So I wanted to play football. You know, I was back fit. I didn't want to be sat in the stands doing the radio or sat on the bench watching games, you know. So I had the opportunity to go to Bolton and progress my career. It was a big wrench for me to leave my boyhood club, Newcastle. But it was something I felt I had to do to progress my career. And although it was tough, it was a wonderful 5 or 6 seasons I had at Bolton. Absolutely loved it. Met some great, great Scottish manager, Bruce Rioch, Colin Todd, great manager. Played with some great players and met some great people.
How was obviously, as you mentioned, Bruce Rioch, how was he with you? The manager, Bruce Rioch, how was he?
Bruce was, he was a hard taskmaster. He was very, very, on his timekeeping, disciplinarian. Loved his team to be fit. So we would do fitness sessions with Bruce where it was like, wow, I haven't done this kind of training before, because he wanted his team to be fitter than any other team in the division. At that time, we're in the Championship as it is now. So he wanted us not only to be the best team in division, but he wanted us to be the fittest team. So you can imagine how tough training would have been back then. A couple of Scottish lads in the team at the time who could moan, by the way, Owen Coyle and John McGinley. Wow. They didn't like the running sessions.
I was actually going to mention, obviously, Owen Coyle. I've heard a lot about him and stuff, and he comments on he's shooting Coyle and stuff like that. And was he involved in Iron Brew back then as well?
I loved his Iron Brew and his full fat coke. He had the worst diet I've ever seen in football, but he was the skinniest man you've ever met.
JP, that's funny he says that, isn't it? Because Owen Coyle is renowned for his fizzy drinks and having a laugh and his cakes on a Friday at Burnley. And as Alan says, he was basically nothing on him. It's crazy how that works, isn't it?
Yeah, just growing up, mate, myself, some guys are just blessed for that sort of metabolism. They're just blessed for that. They can go out and have a curry. I'm one of the guys that looks at a curry and I put on about a stone and a half. And some guys can go and have 2 curries and not put on an ounce. So, unfortunately, that's just the way of the world. But it's funny you should say Owen Coyle was moaning about running. For a centre forward, do you think he'd be happy running?
Aye, to be fair, on a Saturday, and when we had a match, he would run for fun. But when we're doing the running sessions in training, man, he didn't like it. But no, they were a great bunch of lads at Bolton, and we had a lot of success at that time as well.
Obviously, Bolton as well. Again, I can only go by the research I'm doing. Did you actually score the first competitive goal at the Reebok Stadium?
I scored in the last game at Burnden Park. We beat Charlton 3-1 or 4-1. I scored in that game, and then I scored the first goal at the Reebok. So it was a nice little something they can't take away from you. Scored in the last game at Burnden Park, and then I scored the first goal at the Reebok.
No, that's definitely, as I say, you've done a lot of things with Celtic, but to do that's a JP to score the first goal in the stadium. That's something I like to think you would remember for the rest of your days.
Absolutely.
Without a doubt.
100%. That's 2 clubs he's went down in history, and not just Celtic, but Bolton as well.
I scored Bolton's first goal in the Premier League as well, so that was another one for us.
Doesn't get any better.
Obviously, says in Bolton, Alan. Who was? I know it was Alan Stubbs was there, Pat Line and Phil Brown. How was Phil Brown? Because I know people have watched a few other podcasts and have said a few things about him that they're no big fans in. But how was he with you?
As long as he wasn't on the sunbed, he was all right with me, Brown. No, but talking about moving into Jamie Boyle's house for a week, I moved into Brownies for a spell. So he was the captain, and he was from the northeast, the same as me. He's a Geordie boy, so he took us under his wing for a short spell. So I learnt a few lessons while living with him. He gave us a bollocking one day. I had a shave on before a match, and I didn't clean the sink out after us when I had a shave, so he gave us a proper bollocking. So
did he make you sit on the rug and point the finger and?
Aye. So Brownie was a great captain. He was a great captain, and it's no surprise that he went on to management as well.
See, obviously Bolton, was it quite old school as well? Like very old school, like disciplined, and like you can I step out of line?
It was like I said, we had a lot of senior players: John McGinley, Tony Kelly, Dave Lee, Andy Walker, Mixu Patalainen, Coyley. So we had senior players, and then the young lads like myself and Stubbsy, Jason McAteer. We had to toe the line. If we didn't toe the line, we're in trouble. Yeah.
I think it's good. Obviously, for you growing up as well, JP, for Alan, that he's been under that discipline, because some players these days don't have that kind of squad mentality or discipline and being structured, because some teams aren't like that these days.
No, some aren't, mate. for me, it's all about knowing the expectations of what you're walking into when you sign their club. And as Alan speaks, especially for Celtic, he just, as soon as I seen him, he just got it straight away for me. I knew right away, knew what was expected at Celtic. And that only came with his career prior to Celtic, and learning his trade, as they say. And yeah, any young one should do the same. Whenever they sign for teams and clubs, I think they need to know a bit about the history of the club and, you know, what they're going to represent. That's, for me, that's massive.
Then obviously after Bolton, Alan, was Aston Villa, and I know you played with a few characters there: Carboni, Bosnich, Southgate, Merson. That's quite a squad.
Yeah, don't forget Collymore.
Collymore as well.
He was a character. He was a character, big star. And Villa was I mean, that was a step up from Bolton in terms of the size of the club and the quality that was in the dressing room at the time. So it was a big step up. It started off well for us, but it didn't end particularly well. But had it gone well at Villa, I would probably never have got the opportunity to move to Celtic. So in a way, looking back, when people ask you the question, would you change anything? No, I wouldn't change anything about my career at all, because the path it took and the success I had at Bolton, and then not so much at Villa, but then at Celtic after that. Had it not have gone a bit pear-shaped at Villa, I might not have got the opportunity to go and play for the Hoops.
Obviously, Aston Villa, I know it was $4.5 million, so it was quite a decent fee for back then. How did the move come about? Was that again to try and take yourself to a better level?
Well, it was interesting because I was at Bolton and I was doing well. We were in the Premiership and I was scoring goals at that level at Bolton, and I knew there was a lot of attention through the media and through my agent and stuff like that. There was a lot of clubs looking at us at the time at Bolton, and I think everyone knew if Bolton were to get relegated, which we did that season, was probably time for me to move on. You know, I'd had 5 seasons, played over 200 games, and I was about 23 at the time, so I wanted to play at the highest level I could, and the fee was good for Bolton, and I was happy to move in there. I had a few options: Villa, Leeds, Blackburn, Man United, Arsenal, but for whatever reason I chose Aston Villa. Whether that was right or wrong, who knows, but I talk about it in depth in the book. But no, it was 2 years of my career. I didn't play that many games. I got an ankle injury that didn't help. But then once Martin O'Neill come knocking on the door at Celtic, it was get me boots and get away, you know.
And as you mentioned, obviously, to the team we support, Celtic, obviously, the move, as you say, O'Neill calls. Is that as soon as Martin O'Neill calls, it's I'm off. That's me up to Scotland.
Aye, well, I'd spoke to him briefly when I left Bolton before I signed for Villa, when he was manager of Leicester City. So he tried to sign us at Leicester. So I knew he was keen on myself as a player. Well, it might not have been him. It might have been his assistant, John Robertson. Robbo tells us he takes the credit for signing us for Celtic. So but when Martin eventually rang us, when he knew I was trying to get away from Aston Villa, there was a couple of other clubs interested, but there was only one place I wanted to go, and that was Celtic, and play for Martin O'Neill. And
that's, I says, your JP, he signed for $4.5 million to Aston Villa. Celtic was only 2. I'm sure it was 2.75 Alan. So again, for me, JP, that's an absolute bargain. If you're looking at in these days markets, it's a phenomenal value that we got from him.
Absolutely. Talk about highway robbery, as they say. And Celtic probably should have been wearing a mask. To pay that money for what we ended up with was just to me, it doesn't make sense. At least double figures. And probably today's market, you're talking for anything for, I don't know, 30 upwards for that ability. Easy.
Oh, I wish I was 24 again, JP.
Yeah, well, as I say,
I know, but when you look back though, you know, myself, I think it was 2.5, not 2.75. I think Big Sutty was round about 6. Ronnie John Hartson was round about 5. Lenny was round about 5.5. So Didier Gap, 50 grand. You know, imagine what these players will be worth today, man. You know,
exactly.
Sutton went to Chelsea for what, 10.5 million in the summer before he come to Celtic, and then you think they pay 6 million for Sutton. What a player he was!
Yeah,
obviously,
definitely.
As you mentioned there, so many players in that team that it was just a team of men, team of absolute superstars for us watching. Obviously, I was a bit younger back then, but you said Sutton, Hartson, Larsson, yourself, Agat, Hetroff, Lambert, Lennon. It's just the names just off your tongue. It's to play in that team as well. See the standard for going to Villa to Celtic. I know because Scottish football, the standard gets kind of demised a wee bit, but see back then, in my opinion, that was maybe when Celtic Rangers were at their best. They few years. Was that the same as you as players? Was the standard training?
I would say so. I would say the Celtic squad would have at that time, and maybe the Rangers squad could have coped in the top half of the Premiership without a doubt. And I think the fact that I'm sure you're going to go on to Seville and that, but we played against teams, Blackburn, Liverpool, teams like that, and we beat teams like that. So they were teams flying high at the top of the Premiership at the time. So I've got no doubt that Celtic team, the names you've just mentioned, could have coped no end in the Premiership without a doubt.
I think JP, what Alan says there, that playing down south, I think he's right, because that team, for me, mate, they're my heroes. Even though we had Brendan Rodgers' team, they guys were just absolutely phenomenal.
Oh, the Martin O'Neill's era, and with Alan and Henrik and etc., they would wipe the flare in most Celtic teams, to be honest with you. And that's just the way I see it. Look, you mentioned that a minute or two ago there, Ryan, about a team of men. For me, the team's the current team just now, compared to that team, if the two teams were to play each other, the team just now would probably get bullied something terrible. Mm-hmm. They would get, that would just be a cakewalk for Alan and his teammates at the time, because of the physicalness, and the demands that they put on each other as men. And that team.
I think you're spot on, JP. I think what you're saying there, like you look at the group of players that I played with at Celtic. I look back at the Celtic team who's just had the 9 in a row and what have you. And some quality players in there without a doubt. But Brownie being the standout one in terms of a man and the voice in the dressing room. We had 7, 8, 9, 10 of Brownies in the dressing room. Yeah. So you can imagine the demands you're putting on each other. So you imagine Brownie putting demands on the rest of the squad. We had 8, 9, 10 of those players in our dressing room. So it was just like, if you weren't at it, you're either out the team or you'd be getting sent off. You'd get sent off training if your standards weren't where they needed to be up there. Off you pop, because we just demanded. There would be
there would be absolutely no qualms about it, because I remember watching these, and I remember even if he's played a stray pass, he's were right on top of whoever it was that done it, and he's were walking off for half time, and he's were chatting about it, and you were pointing to areas of the pitch. Maybe you should have done this, maybe you should have done that, and you can see it. There's results previously. I mean, I could name a couple of results just now. Rangers last season came to Celtic Park. I know we didn't have any fans. You guys never obviously experienced that, Alan. But the way we get beat 2-0, and the manner that we just kind of gave up, that would never have happened if any of us were in that team. Never. So to watch it happen now, it just really angers me.
I don't know if I could have played an Old Firm game without fans in the ground. Jesus Christ. Must be tough, that. But when you're saying there, stray passes and all that, people giving the ball away would be on top of them. That's why Lenny only passed it 10 yards, because he knew he wouldn't give it away.
That's why it was always a sideward pass back to the goalie.
Obviously, as he says about O'Neill, how was he with you as an individual as well? Because I know I've seen as well when he's angry, he does all that with his nose and the voice and that. And how could you tell as well? Could you tell when he was angry, when he wasn't happy with you?
Oh, you knew where you stood. As soon as you knew what kind of mood he was in. As soon as you see him in the morning, you knew whether to speak to him or not to speak to him, type of thing. But in general, he was brilliant with us. He did, you know, even in hotels, he'd come and sit down and have a cup of coffee with us and have a chat and that. And we used to love sitting down with him and John Robertson and talking about his days of working with Brian Clough and hearing all the stories and stuff like that. So, he was a great character. We learned so much from him. And even now to this day, you know, he's not a manager now to me. He's a friend now. At the time, he was a manager. I was shit scared of him, I'm not going to lie. And I think most of the lads were. Only Big Sutty can call him Martin now. We all still call him Gaffer, but Sutty still calls him Martin. So it's like, oh, Jesus, father and son. But no, he was a top man. Really, really wonderful bloke.
And obviously as well, Celtic, there was a treble in your first season as well. That must have been an absolute incredible season as well to be involved in.
I don't think anyone envisaged that happening. I think success was going to be reasonably quick, but to win the treble in the first season just shows you how big a difference Martin made in the dressing room. Because don't forget, not only did he sign good players like Sutty and Big John, Lenny, Didi, and myself, there was also good players already there. And I think quite quickly he made his mind up which ones he didn't want to keep and which ones he did want to keep. And the ones he kept, you know, Jackie, Mark, Henrik, Paul Lambert, Tom Boyd was still around for a few more years, played his part Boydie. So Martin he quickly made his mind up which players he wanted to keep and which ones he wanted out the deadwood. So and the ones he kept and then the ones he added to it just ended up being a great squad. And there was no surprise that we went on to win the treble in that first season.
And obviously you mentioned Larsson. I don't think that guy needs any introduction, but the fact you played with him, trained with him, and been, as you would say, a friend with him, the guy just an absolute hero. I don't know how we'd obviously play with him every day. Was he actually, even though you trained with him, did you still need to pinch yourself in the way that this guy's unbelievable? He's absolutely world class.
He would do certain things in training in terms of finishing or movement or a bit of skill or just something to con a goalkeeper or something. He was just so sharp, so quick, so talented. And I seen him the other week. I was up doing a gig at the Hydro in Glasgow the other week, and he looks just the same apart from a bit more grey hair. So he still looks as fit as a fiddle. And I think there was 12 or 14,000 people in the Hydro on a Monday night, and I think 13,500 of them probably paid to see Henrik. So it was he's got so much pull. And I've seen players at other clubs. Eric Cantona at Man United, a god, and Alan Shearer's at Newcastle. But for me, I haven't seen anything in terms of adulation that Henrik gets from the Celtic fans around the world.
As Alan says at JP, there's so much you can talk about the man, but the fact he was at your club, and I generally believe if it wasn't maybe for the manager and the love of the club and the players he played with, he could have been away sooner because the guy was unbelievable. And I'm not saying he was big on Celtic, because at that time the club was unbelievable and the players were there. But the guy was just, you could tell he could go up to the next level.
Aye, definitely. In terms of Henrik, right for day one, when I say right for day one, he gave a ball away to Jack Stanley and we got beat 2-1 against Stubbs. And then we played a European match 4 nights later, I think it was, against FC Tyrol from Austria. And he scored an own goal. So at the time, my dad and me were at the game and we're going, what the hell's going on here? This guy with dreadlocks has come in and all of a sudden, no hell's breaking loose for the wrong reasons. But no, he soon showed. And I think it was, what was it, £650,000 Wim Jansen managed to get him signed for. That's just unbelievable. He obviously knew what he was signing. And albeit, Brim only stayed 1 season. Larsson stayed, 7, nearly 8. So, yeah maybe a season or 2 into his Celtic career, there was rumours of Gerald Tullia watching him and like Sir Alex Ferguson, and obviously it was just papers then. You didn't have like social media the way it is now and all that kind of. But Alan, see when you were there and you were putting that demands on each other, did you ever watch across the city and like see the Netflix? Because you must have saw some of the negative headlines that were coming towards you. And in terms of the treble season, because that, as you said yourself, mate, that wasn't expected. I don't even think a few percent, let alone.
I think you do. You get vibes of the negativity that we were a long ball team and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. You know, people mention it to me now about long ball team. If you look at the players in that team, Lenny being one of them, Lenny didn't pass the ball more than 10 yards. And that's not a criticism. That was his game. Didier didn't pass the ball. He just ran with the ball. I like the pass. If I seen a long pass, I'd pass long. Stilian Petrov was a footballer. Paul Lambert was a footballer. Bobo might head it long a lot of the time. But you know, there's a player I haven't mentioned, that Lubo Moravcik. I mean, what a player Lubo was. So the talent that we had in that dressing room, I think it's a myth that we were a long ball team. We went to Anfield and won 2-0. We played Liverpool off the park. You don't go to Anfield and play them off the park by being a long ball team. So there was negativity, but we knew in the dressing room, we knew what kind of team we were. We were physical, but we could also play as well. So, yeah.
Did you ever feel that you had a point to prove when that came around? Whenever teams, you know, like say Soonish, it was men versus boys. How did that make you feel when you heard that?
Aye, of course it does. Of course it does. When you get negative criticism, when you're Henrik Larsson or Chris Sutton or Neil Lennon or Jackie McNamara, you know, you played at the highest level for your country and stuff like that in World Cups, and you know, of course it is. It's gonna drive you on to prove people wrong and shut people up, and I think that happened on more than one occasion with us. You know, people just you can thrive off other people's negativity, and that's what we did.
And obviously, as you mentioned there, Seville, that was in the Seville run as well. That run for me is like all Celtic fans. It's the pinnacle. I know we didn't really do much else when it comes to didn't win anything that season, but that was just. I think if that even happened now, if that was the case, you'd be maybe as much as you don't want to give up trophies to see that run and see the players play. It would be amazing. How was it as yourself being a part of that? And did you actually believe? Did you ever believe when you go to this stage? I know it's very hard to talk about this. Or we're going to go win this. Every game's the next step. But was there any situation you thought we could actually do this? We can actually get really far in this?
We just fancied ourselves against anyone. We didn't mind if they were foreigners or if they were English. We fancied ourselves because we backed ourselves. The manager backed us and we backed ourselves. So it was a great run. Some great nights both at Celtic Park and away from Celtic Park. The amount of people who want to speak to you now when I see people at functions or at games or at gigs or whatever, they want to talk about that run to Seville and this night and that night, and it's just a great shame that we fell short at the last hurdle, but we were so close, but yet so far. But still, I think it's 20 years next year, because we were on about having a bit of a reunion, the boys. So 20 years ago, and people still want to talk about it, but at the end of the day we lost, but they still want to talk about the nights, the memories, and the heartbreak of Seville. So there were great memories, and I just wish we could have got over the line and got the winner medal, not the runner-up medal. As
you say, there was a lot of memories in that run, and not just that run as well, other European games at Barcelona, when you scored yourself, obviously game at Blackburn, and the goal at Anfield, again, that goal for you, and then Hartson, what a night that was. And I think that was maybe a game that, like you says, you proved yourself as a squad that you can go to the highest level and beat these teams, and that run just proves exactly how good you were. And obviously, I know you say that they didn't win the match, but the fact that you still got there, considering the full run, is phenomenal.
It was, and like you say, great memories. And I've been to a couple of games the last couple of weeks. I was at Anfield. I went to watch Liverpool against Newcastle a few Thursday nights ago. I went to Old Trafford last week to watch Man United against Burnley, because I live not far from Manchester and Liverpool, so it's easy for me to get the games in this area. So, and there were night matches under the lights, and you just pinch yourself and you think, oh, I miss them nights. But you know, those nights you mentioned, the Juventus, Barcelona, even Old Firm games that were evening kickoffs, they're great memories, and the memories that you'll probably, I'll take to the grave with us. And it's great playing football under the floodlights in front of a full Celtic Park. I don't think there's any better feeling.
So like you say, if Alan says, JP, obviously the final as well, I know team lost, but the goals to Larsson as well, mate. I know Alan will probably agree that I still don't think the goals get talked about enough, Alan. I think they're absolutely unbelievable goals that Larsson scored, and I just think that the guy just, as you say, I think Hughes felt from him. I think I've heard a few comments that he's actually felt because Hughes has done everything and he done everything he could to win, unfortunately. There's different parts of why things, obviously we understand. I'm guessing it in the book. We obviously Mourinho and everything else. But
I thought one of his goals, the corner, was absolutely brilliant. Mm-hmm. He couldn't miss from that corner. It was on his head. I think it might have been from myself. I'm not sure. But his general performance. We give it all. Listen, it was a hot night in Seville. You go down to 10 men. You're playing against a good team. Mourinho's got them play and he's got them playing the game. You know, I watched Mourinho's programme about when he was Tottenham manager. He don't give a shit, Mourinho, how they win. As long as they win, he doesn't give a shit. So, and that's evident when you look back at that game in Seville against his Porto team. They'll do anything to win the game, and that's how they work. That's how he works as a manager, and we didn't cope with that, or the referee didn't help us cope with it. So obviously it's disappointing, but like you say, it's still great memories.
And as you mentioned, obviously the Old Firm games. Wow, they must have just been absolutely unbelievable playing. Obviously, you want to win the game. It must have been horrendous if you lost the game, but they must have been unbelievable atmospheres.
It's just, I always say to people even now, if you get a chance to go to an Old Firm game, if you get allowed to go in the stadium, that is, you have to take the opportunity. Even if you're not a Celtic fan or a Rangers fan, if you just get someone to get you a ticket and you get a chance to go, because it's like nothing else. You know, there's big derbies around Europe and in England there's derbies, but that's just something's just got a different edge to it. And I think I played in 26 of them, so I was, even if I could have just played in one of them just to witness it, but to do it 26 times was unbelievable.
And as well, you scored a lot of winners and obviously red cards, and I know there's one or two that are maybe no red cards that I think we can all agree on. But I think in general, Alan, your performance in the games as well, you're a massive player, and I like to think you would give yourself a bit of that kind of proudness as well, because I always say in the games you're a massive player for us. Your stats tell you everything. As you say, your left foot, mate, was unbelievable. You see, after the games as well, see, like obviously going out in the public and stuff, obviously it must have been hard for you and any football player in Celtic Rangers to walk out in the streets. Did you ever get abuse in that in the streets at all?
No, not particularly. I believe that if you win the Old Firm game, don't go out and rub people's noses in it. And likewise, when you lose an Old Firm game, don't go home and hide for 3 days. I kind of kept a happy medium. If we won the game, I'd go and have a bite to eat somewhere. I wouldn't go mad. If we lost the game, I'd go and have a bite to eat somewhere and not go mad, because I think it can. If you're prepared to go out when you win and show your face when you win, you've got to be prepared to go out when you lose as well. So I think all that burying your head in the sand and all that, when I think you've just got to try and get a level. And there was a couple of occasions where you get a little bit of stick, but you'd get that at any level, at any club. So you're certainly going to expect that in Glasgow. So, but it's water off a duck's back, you know.
I think as well, obviously. The last wee bit I like to speak about, Alan, is obviously the call up at England. For me, I still believe, I don't know what you think of it, obviously, I know it's in the book as well, but I still believe you should be a lot more than what you did, mate. Phenomenal player, especially at that time, England were really struggling for left mids. And again, do you think that's because you played in Scotland? Do you think that's the thing you down south? If you play up here, you're not at the same level?
I think that might be a big part of it. I think they look at it as the Scottish League not being particularly strong, which that's not me saying that. I think that was the general opinion. And but then you look, we were playing in Europe. We played in Europe every season, whether it was Champions League or the then UEFA Cup, now Europa League. So we were beating big teams and playing against big teams. Excuse me. So yeah, I think it was definitely due with the level they thought you were playing at every week, but I think unless you've been in Scotland, played in Scotland, or managed or coached in Scotland, that only then do you realise the intensity. My good mate Lee Clark, He played at proper level Premier League for Newcastle, Fulham, Sunderland. But he got the chance to go to Scotland a few years ago and manage Kilmarnock. And I think it was only when he went to Kilmarnock as manager did he realise how intense the game was in Scotland. And I only think if you work in Scotland or played in Scotland, do you get to know that, because I think it's just the perception people have down south of Scottish football, but it's hell of intense up there.
I think, JP, Alan says here, the last bit for yourself, mate, that I get the feeling as well that they kind of look at this game as no as big as maybe as Alan says, when you come to Celtic Rangers, it's wow, it's the intensity is incredible and the standard is actually pretty decent. And I think maybe, I thought it was the same as well, JP, with Sinclair when he came up here. He done really well and Southgate says, well, I'm not going to pick you. I don't know if that's, as Alan says, is that a degree of the levels, but I think overall, JP, Alan, absolutely fantastic career for us as well. And I do believe he should have got more England caps. I think you mentioned it in the book. But I think overall, mate, what an absolute career, JP.
Oh, unbelievable. As I said, one of my favourites in a hoops jersey growing up. Everybody would, it was Henry, it was Sutton, it was this, it was that. Alan was always mine. I'm talking to my wee boy's only 3 and I'm telling him who he is. So that's how, that's how well thought of you are up here, mate. But not just that. Yeah, I've always found, especially when you listen to the media and the pundits and stuff, interviews they do, they kind of look down their noses a bit at the Scottish football. I've always found that, a poor attitude from them. All you've got to do is look at players who, thought they were, they were big and that. Joey Barton came up here and he went through one derby and that was it. That was the last time he was seen up here. Mm-hmm. And it just, for whatever reasons, when he done his interview, don't know if you guys seen it, but he was talking about Scott Brown not being in his league and this and that and things that he was saying, and I was just like, do your talking on the park, man. Don't come up here and try and... You're not coming up here to run the roost. Brownie's been doing this for years. He's learned his craft in the Scottish League. And he's a total warrior, as Alan says. Alan played against him as well when he was at Hibs. So, and then he was snapping at their heels. So, as a kid. So he's always been that type of player. And he was just putting him down in an interview. He was just kind of, nah, he's not in my league. And all I had to do was laugh because there was nothing. And I knew right, Alan's laughing just now, but I knew right away what was going to happen. That was just stuff like that. Bruni was more like say Alan and Sutton and boys for that generation. So he would have just used that as fuel. I do you think so? Well, let's see what happens then when we play. And that's what happened. He get totally schooled when he came up here. Cranchard was a shame, not fit enough. Thought he could just, he was good on the ball, and you need to do more when you play up here. You need a bit of grit and you need a bit of determination. Again, you've got to learn who you're playing for as well. You look at Alan and stuff like that. Alan played against a guy in Barry Ferguson who was a total, their version of what these guys were in our team. He knew what it meant to play for a club that size. And that's how you heard of the Paul Le Guen and all that stuff as well. And, because that's what happened when these guys weren't happy. It was the challenge to whoever they weren't happy with. You don't seem to get that now. And I think that's for me, it's a big problem. Because I've been brought up, if I'm not happy with something, I'll speak my mind and I'll say and I'll sort it out, whatever it is I'm dealing with, and then it's sorted. But you don't seem to get that now, like in the modern day game. And I don't know why, because for me, this badge means a lot for me. And if I had a chance to play with that, I would have gave the same as what Alan gave, and what Chris Sutton gave, and what Lennon gave, and what Henrik Larsson gave, and so on and so on. So when I see somebody not giving the same amount of effort, it really angers me for the stands.
Well, I agree, mate. And obviously, Alan, the last part, Alan, what is the future? I know you've got the book out and stuff, but any plans to do coaching or management? I know you've briefly said in the past that maybe getting back into coaching, but is that something you get back into again?
I've been starting probably since October, November. I've been trying to get out and start watching football again, trying to get my eye back in. I've had a few years out now, and COVID's not helped, obviously. It's not helped anybody, but I've been out and about watching all different standards and levels of football the last few months. So, yeah, it's something I'm looking to get back into. The sooner the better, really. So I'm going to watch a player for my mate on Saturday. My mate's a manager, so I'm going to go and have a run, give a once-over on a player for him, give him an opinion. So I just try and get back into football, and I feel like I've got a lot to give, so a lot of experience as a player and as a coach. So it would be nice if I can get back in some capacity, yeah. No,
I agree, mate. I think you've got a lot to give. Fantastic player, even as a coach at Celtic. I know you mentioned that in the book. Fantastic player as a coach as well, and won trophies as a coach as well. So absolutely phenomenal. Alan, I really appreciate you coming on, mate. It's been a fantastic chat to get to know more about your career. And JP, thanks again, mate. Alan, take care. And
thanks, Ryan. Cheers, JP. All the best.
Cheers, Alan. Pleasure,
Cheers.
mate. Thank you.
Lads. Thanks a lot.
Heel.
Hello.